Hi everybody, welcome. This is Yohan, and in this episode I would love to share this 9-patch convertible backpack project with you. The finished measurements of this backpack are approximately 13 inches wide at the widest point by 12 inches tall by 4 inches deep. The design itself is pretty simple and clean, nothing too complex at all, yet it is very functional. At the front here there is a generous size pocket. There's also a little zipper pocket at the back. You can put a phone or a small wallet in there. It comes with a zipper closure, and inside there are 2 slip pockets and a zipper pocket as well. So this is a lovely little backpack for your daily adventures. I like the fact that you can convert this bag into a shoulder bag, so it's pretty versatile. For this project we're gonna use some 5-inch squares. So if you've got some charm packs in your stash, you can use them. Or if you don't have any, you can simply cut some 5-inch squares from your favorite scraps. Or if you've got some layer cakes, you can divide your layer cake into 4 and make them into 5-inch squares. Now, if you don't fancy patchwork, no worries at all. I included the measurements for solid panels as well, so you can still follow along without the patchwork. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and without further ado, let's get started. For the exterior of the bag, you will need 13 5-inch squares. You will also need some accent fabric. I use canvas fabric here. You may also use cotton quilting fabric. First, we're gonna work on the front exterior panel. For the upper panel, you will need to lay out 3 5-inch squares horizontally and then sew them together with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Press the seams as you go. You can either press them open or towards one side. I chose the latter, maybe I'm used to with quilting. For the lower panel, you want to lay out 6 5-inch squares in 2 rows just like that. And then you want to sew them together with 1/4 inch of seam allowance, 1 row at a time. Apply fusible woven interfacing to the wrong side of both the upper and the lower panels. Now let's prepare the zipper for the front zipper pocket. So we're gonna use a regular all-purpose zipper, 12 inches long, which means the length of the zipper tape is 12 inches and the length of the entire zipper is 13 inch. Now if you've got longer zipper, no problem, simply trim off your zipper to measure exactly at 13 inch. Now we're gonna install the zipper tabs. So go ahead and cut up 2 little rectangles. Fold the long sides in half, wrong sides together, just like that. Finger press that real quick. Position that on one of the end of the zipper, about 1/2 inch away from the very edge. Clip them in place. And then repeat the same to the opposite end. And then go ahead and stitch along the folded edges with about 1/8 inch of seam allowance. My folded edges is sitting right on top of my metal zipper stop. So I just gotta be careful here not to run over that metal stop. Now let's go ahead and trim off the excess zipper tabs fabric to make them the same width as the zipper tape. Now fold your zipper in half, matching the folded edges of the zipper tab. So ignore the outer edge, but match the folded edges of the zipper tabs. And then take your disappearing fabric marker and then mark the center fold point of your zipper. Do the same with the upper front panel. Lay the zipper panel below the upper front panel. And of course, you want to match the center points of both panels. And then go ahead and trim off the excess zipper tabs. Now lay the upper panel and the zipper panel right sides together with the zipper pull at your left-hand side, aligning the lower edges of the upper panel with the upper edges of the zipper panel. Secure them in place with some sewing clips and then sew with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Once you've done sewing, go ahead and press the seams and then top stitch. Now lay the lower panel piece right side up and then take the zipper panel and lay that right side down, just like so. Now take the lining piece and lay that right side down. Now I like to take a peek real quick between my upper and lower panel just to make sure that the seams of the charm packs are aligned. Now you can secure them in place with some sewing clips and then sew with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Once you've done sewing, go ahead and press the seams, both the interior and the exterior, and top stitch. Next, you want to prepare the lining panel too, and you want to stabilize this one with fusible foam stabilizer. Cut the foam stabilizer 1/2 inch smaller all around and then center the position, of course. Now lay the lining panel right side up and then lay the zipper panel wrong side down. Secure them in place with some sewing clips and then base stitch all around with 1/8 inch of seam allowance. Alright, so our front exterior is done and this is how the pocket looks like. Next, we're gonna work on the back exterior pocket. So go ahead and lay out 4 5-inch squares in 2 rows, just like that. And then sew them together with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Fuse the wrong side of your pocket piece with fusible woven interfacing to make it nice and crisp. Now prepare the inner pocket piece. And you also want to fuse the wrong side with some fusible woven interfacing only along the upper top, just around where we're gonna draw the template. Draw the zipper template to the wrong side of the inner pocket piece, about 1 inch down from the top. And of course, you want to center the position. As usual, you want to draw a line on the center of the rectangle and little triangles at the corners, just like so. Lay the inner pocket piece on the right side of the exterior pocket, about 1 inch down from the top. And of course, you want to center the position, pin them in place, and then go ahead and stitch on the outer line of the template. Once you've done sewing, go ahead and cut the center line and the corner triangles. And as you get to the corner, just be careful not to cut through the stitches. Now turn the inner pocket piece to the wrong side. Use your finger to shape and to neaten up the edges, and then go ahead and give this a proper pressing. And here I've already pressed my zipper template and it's now ready to go. So let's prepare the zipper. Again, we're gonna use a regular all-purpose zipper. The zipper should be at least 7 inches long. As usual, you want to apply some basting tape to the edges of the zipper tapes and then peel the top layer off. Lay the zipper template on the right side of the zipper. Of course, you want to center the position of the zipper teeth and then go ahead and press with your fingers so that the basting tape will stick to the fabric. Once everything is secured, go ahead and sew all around with about 1/8 inch of seam allowance. Trim off any excess zipper about 1/4 inch away from the seam line. Fold the inner pocket piece in half so that the bottom edges and the top edges are aligned. Pin them in place and then go ahead and sew the sides and the top with 3/8 inch of seam allowance. When you sew, make sure that the exterior pocket is out of the way. And voila, the zipper pocket is done. Now take the pocket lining piece and lay that right side down. Secure them in place with some pins or sewing clips. And once you've done that, go ahead and sew all around, leaving about 3 to 4 inches of opening at the bottom. And you want to sew with 3/8 inch of seam allowance. Snip all the corners, just be careful not to cut through the stitches though. And then turn this inside out through the opening hole. Poke all the corners. You can use knitting needle or point turner or chopstick. And once you've done that, you want to fold the raw edges from the opening hole towards the inside about 3/8 of an inch. And then go ahead and give this good pressing. When you do the pressing, just be very careful. Do not press over your zipper because you may ruin it. And I like to use my pressing cloth just in case. Alright, so our back pocket panel is done and ready to go. Now let's set this aside and we're gonna work on the D-ring tabs. So go ahead and cut up a piece of rectangle from the accent fabric. Then we're gonna fold and press this to make a 1-inch strip. As usual, we're gonna start by folding it in half lengthwise and then press, and then fold the long edges towards the center fold, and then press, and then fold everything in half again and press. Now go ahead and sew the long edges with 1/8 of an inch of seam allowance. And you want to start by sewing the open edges first. Now we're going to divide this strip into 3. So go ahead and measure 2.5 inch and then cut. And then measure another 2.5 inch and cut. So you should end up with 3 2.5 inch by 1 inch strips. Now let's prepare the back exterior piece. Cut up a piece of rectangle from the accent fabric, measuring 14 inches wide by 14.5 inches long. Now you want to determine the center fold crease by folding the fabric in half lengthwise and then press. This way it's easier to position the pocket and the D-ring tab, and it will also prevent you from getting confused between the width and the length of the fabric since there isn't much difference in measurements. Now take one of the 2.5 inch strip and then feed that through the hole of the D-ring, and then sew along the edges with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Measure 3 inches down from the top center point and then put a little mark there. Now I'm going to apply just a little bit of fabric basting glue along the edges of my D-ring tab. Now you want to position this D-ring tab on that 3-inch point mark, aligning the raw edges of the D-ring tab with the 3-inch point. Gently press the tabs just so the glue basting will be sticking to the fabric. And then go ahead and sew the tab in place with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Now you want to take the pocket panel piece and lay that right side up, about 2.5 inch down from the top. So the pocket panel should be covering the raw edges of the D-ring tab. And of course you want to center the position of the pocket. Simply match the center seams with the center fold crease. Now you can pop a few pins to secure them in place. And then go ahead and sew all around with 1/8 of an inch of seam allowance. And I like to start from the bottom, right where the opening hole is. Again and again guys, I highly recommend to use your walking foot attachment. This will make your life much easier. It will stitch through all the layers of fabric and give stability to them. Hence your stitching will look much nicer and neater. As you get to the D-ring area, you may want to backstitch to reinforce it. I actually did come back later to add a few more stitches to reinforce the D-ring tab. And here I am back to the D-ring tabs area to reinforce the stitches. Alright, so we are done attaching our pocket and the D-ring tab. Now we're gonna stabilize this piece with the foam stabilizer. So I'm gonna go ahead and position this on the wrong side of my fabric and then fuse according to the manufacturer's instructions. So I'm fusing this from the right side of my fabric, starting from the center part and make my way to all the sides. Meanwhile, you wanna be careful with the zipper. Do not run your iron directly on the zipper. Now we're going to install the other 2 D-ring tabs to the lower part of the back. So take your ruler and measure 3 inches from the bottom edge and then put a little mark there and repeat the same to the opposite side. Now place the D-ring tab on that 3-inch point mark. So you want to align the lower edges of the tab with the 3-inch point mark. Clip this in place and then repeat the same to the opposite side. Then you want to stitch this in place with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Next, we're gonna work on the D-ring tabs for the shoulder strap. This time though, we're gonna make smaller tabs since these tabs are gonna be positioned at the upper tab of the bag, and I just wanna keep them low-key. Since not all hardwares are created the same, even though they are the same inner measurements, like these two swivel hooks, they are the same 1-inch inner measurements. However, you can obviously see that this one is a bit more lighter weight and this one is a bit more thicker and a bit more heavy duty. So I'm gonna go ahead and test these two, and seems like both of these swivel hooks can be hooked to these little D-rings, so I can use either or. So go ahead and prepare a small rectangle measuring 4" by 2" and then fold and press this just as usual to make a 1/2 inch wide strip, and then stitch along the edges with 1/8 inch of seam allowance. And once you've done that, go ahead and cut this strip in half. Simply take your ruler, measure 2 inches and cut. Now go ahead and feed this through the hole of the D-ring. Measure down 1.5 inch from the top edge of both sides of your exterior piece and then mark with your fabric marker. Now position the D-ring tab on the 1.5 inch point mark. This time you want to align the upper edges of the tab with the 1.5 inch point mark. Now go ahead and clip them in place. Repeat the same to the opposite and then stitch along the edges with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Next, you want to cut 2 inches square notches at the bottom corners of your exterior pieces. Of course, if you've made bags before, you know exactly what it is for. This is to box the corners of your bag later. Now that the exterior pieces are done and ready to go, we're going to set this aside and we will work on the straps. Cut 2 4 inches wide strips of fabric about 42 inches long. If you use cotton quilting fabric, simply cut from the width of the fabric and then trim off the selvage ends and you're good to go. Now, since I use canvas fabric here, which is heavier weight, I don't need to add interfacing to my fabric. Now, if you use cotton quilting fabric, you may need to add some fusible woven interfacing. Just like usual, I've shown this many times. You want to cut smaller size fusible woven interfacing, and when you apply the interfacing, you want to center the position. Fold and press the strap pretty much the same way we did with the D-ring tab. I'm pretty sure you're all very familiar with this method by now. However, you want to first fold the short sides towards the wrong side about 1/2 inch and then press. This way the raw edges will be hidden inside. And you want to do the same to the opposite end of the strap. And then go ahead and stitch all around with 1/8 inch of seam allowance. Now let's prepare all the hardwares. You will need 2 adjuster sliders and 4 swivel hooks. And of course, they all should be measuring the same as the width of your strap, which is 1 inch. Take the adjuster slider, hold that right side up, and then take one of the end of the strap and then insert that from the wrong side towards the right side and then back to the wrong side. Just like that. Leaving about 1.5 inch of clearance. And then go ahead and sew this. You can either simply stitch 2 lines about 1/2 inch apart, or you can do a rectangle about 1/2 inch wide. This time I chose the latter option, so I started off 1/8 inch from the edge of the strap, simply following the seam line of the strap itself, and then pivot. Again, continue by following the seam line of the strap. And as I get to 1/2 inch distance, I'm going to pivot again and continue stitching until I get back to where I started and back stitch to secure this in place. Now let's set this aside and then grab the other end of the strap. Now take one of the swivel hook and then feed this end of the strap through the hole of the swivel hook, keeping the head of the swivel hook facing out. Now grab the slider with the edges of the strap facing up. Now you want to feed this end of the strap from the wrong side towards the right side and then back to the wrong side, and then pull the strap through, making sure that there is no twist with your strap. Now take the other swivel hook and then you want to feed that through from the right side towards the wrong side, have about 1.5 inch clearance there. And then go ahead and stitch this in place exactly the same way we did with the slider. And repeat the exact same steps for the other strap. Now we're gonna work on the interior of the bag. So go ahead and prepare your lining pieces. As usual, I already determined my center fold by folding the fabric in half, just so I won't mistake the width and the length. Now we're gonna sew the slip pocket. So go ahead and fold the pocket piece in half, right sides together, and then sew with 3/8 of an inch of seam allowance. Press the seams open and then turn the pocket piece right side out. And then you want to go ahead and press this again and top stitch along the top edges. Lay your pocket piece on the right side of the lining piece, about 4 inches down from the top edges. Pin them in place and then go ahead and sew right on the center and then the sides and the bottom as well. And you should end up with 2 decent sized slip pockets. For the interior zipper pocket, we're gonna install this pretty much the same way as we did the back exterior pocket. Here I've got my inner pocket piece and I've already drawn my zipper template on the wrong side, the same exact measurements. Fuse the wrong side of the lining with a little bit of fusible woven interfacing as well, about 2 inches down from the top. Now flip the lining right side up and then take the pocket piece and lay that right side down, about 2 inches down from the top edge, and of course you want to center the position. Now you can pin them in place and then go ahead and do the rest of the step exactly the same way as we did the back exterior pocket. And voila, my zipper pocket is done. So my interior pieces are done and ready to go. And of course, don't forget to cut the 2 inches square notches at the bottom corners, exactly the same as the exterior pieces. For the zipper closure, you will need a purse size zipper, so this is obviously a larger size zipper. The width of the zipper tape is about 1.25 inch. Trim your zipper to measure exactly 13 inches long from one end to the other. Now let's work on the zipper tab. So go ahead and cut up 2 pieces of 2 inch squares. Now you want to fold and press the side edges towards the wrong side, about 1/4 inch, and then press, and then fold this in half, wrong sides together, so that the folded edges are aligned, and then press. Now you want to insert the end of the zipper into the fold of the zipper tab. Go all the way in, making sure that the end of the zipper is touching the very end of the zipper tab. And then secure that in place with a sewing clip. And you want to repeat the same to the other end. And then go ahead and stitch along the edges with about 1/8 of an inch of seam allowance. Now let's trim off the excess zipper tabs so that it will be the same width as the zipper tape. And there you go. So the length of this zipper should remain 13 inch. Lay your front exterior piece right side up. Now when you install the zipper closure, you want to make sure that the zipper pull is facing the same direction as the front zipper pocket. Now lay the zipper right side down. Center the position of the zipper. There should be about 1/2 inch gap on both sides. Now take the front lining piece, the one with the slip pockets, and lay that right side down. Clip them in place and then go ahead and sew with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Now you can turn this to the right side, press the seams, and then top stitch. So you want to stitch about 1/8 inch from the folded edges. And as you can see here, I'm using my walking foot. I don't know if you noticed that I have a great obsession with my walking foot. And I use it pretty much all the time, even when installing zipper. However, if you are more comfortable using your zipper foot or regular presser foot, you can do so. Now take the back exterior piece and lay that right side up. And then take the zipper panel and lay that right side down. Again, you want to make sure that the zipper is centered and all the edges are aligned. And then take the back interior piece and lay that right side down. Secure them in place with some sewing clips and then sew with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Now you want to turn this to the right side and then press the seams, then top stitch. Alright, now you want to separate the exterior from the interior so that they are right sides together. Secure everything in place with some sewing clips. Now you want to make sure that the zipper teeth are facing towards the lining. And then match the seams of the zipper, these seams here, just like so. And then clip. And then repeat the same to the opposite side. Continue clipping all around, and you want to leave about 5 inches of opening at the bottom of the lining. So we're gonna sew this all around, starting from the exterior. You want to start from the center right here down to the bottom, and then do the same to the opposite side, and then sew the bottom. Then again, starting from the center point, we're gonna sew the interior pretty much the same way, and of course leaving out the opening hole. Position your needle right by the zipper tab, so make sure that you are not sewing over the zipper tab. And we're gonna sew with 1/2 inch of seam allowance. And you wanna repeat the same to the opposite side. When you sew the interior part, you simply want to continue the seams from the exterior, and don't forget to backstitch. And of course, you want to make sure that you are not sewing over the zipper tab, and maintain the 1/2 inch of seam allowance. Once you've done sewing, you want to open up the corner, match the bottom seams and the side seams, and then clip, and then go ahead and sew with 1/2 inch of seam allowance. And then repeat the same to all 4 corners of your bag. And once you've done that, go ahead and turn your bag right side out through the opening hole. Poke the bottom corners and then poke the zipper tab. Now you want to pull the lining out and then fold the raw edges towards the wrong side, about 1/2 inch, and then stitch to close the opening. Now you can put the lining back inside, and your bag is pretty much done at this point. All that is left to do is to attach the straps. This is how you attach the straps for the backpack. And to make this a shoulder strap, you will need 1 strap and then attach that to the upper D-rings, and voila! And that's about it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed already, please click that subscribe button so you won't miss any future upload. And I shall see you next time with another fun sewing and quilting projects. Goodbye!